Welcome to This Week in Black Media, March 13th, 2019. And as you can see, we're starting with last week's video, Meet Your Traders, because we're going to roll that on into this week's analysis. For those of you that have been following the Ancestral Productions channel, you saw I did a super mega coon alert for regarding Congressman Jim Clyburn, and this was based on a video that Yvette Carnell put out about gatekeepers and how Clyburn dismisses reparations as impossible after Nancy Pelosi first came out and said that she would be willing to look at it, and Yvette makes the suspects that it was actually Pelosi and the European component of the Democratic Party that put Clyburn out there to actually speak for them and give their true agenda that reparations are impossible. So what he did to us as a community it's beyond shameful, and I am of the belief that he deserves every bit of scrutiny that he gets for doing that, to be called a traitor, all of that. And we're going to see this increasingly happen with the members of the Black Caucus, because we have people that are truly bearing light, like Ilhan Omar, and showing the existing political hierarchy to be the hypocrites that they are. You see, they're not representatives of the people, and particularly when we look at the Congressional Black Caucus, as I've said before, they've taken their own reparations package. You see, they've set themselves up for financial security to the detriment of everyone beneath them. I know from my own experience of watching the way that unions work, particularly I look at some observations I did with the railroad. You see a common theme where the union meets with corporate, and the union, the members, the existing members, will take a package, severance package, etc., new laws, new regulations, etc. As far as their finances are concerned, they'll take a better package for themselves, and then they'll sell out the people beneath them. So this is a common practice. It's the way that corporate, continually in small increments, is allowed to take advantage and get what they want through time. It's all very calculated, and that's precisely what happens with the bootlickers of the Congressional Black Caucus. And we're going to go through an itemized list and find out exactly all of them that support Israel, all of them that have supported legislation that's detrimental to the black community. You see, what they have to deal with now, it's beyond a warning. This is the new reality that they're dealing with, that they haven't had to deal with before, is that they're being scrutinized, every action, and other of the new voices in black media are making reference to that, and their data is accessible. You see, the information age that we live in now, you can look and you can see their record. You can see what they've done. You can see where they've sold out. You see, so there's a new level of accountability that should have always been there. And when we look back at what they've done since the beginning of the Congressional Black Caucus, you will see how they've sold out. And this will be shown here through the court. That's what this channel is about. A lot of the content is about how we've been sold out by our so-called political leaders. None of them are leaders. We have no backbone representation in the Congressional Black Caucus, with the exception of Ilhan Omar. But as far as the African, the ADOS community, we don't have any representation there. So this is a chime for some form of political organization, so we can get people with a spine in there to represent us, because we need a house cleaning of epic proportion. So that brings us to Professor, or rather the Black Authority, did a video about rewarding treason. Important video, because he goes in and he tells the truth. And he goes into detail about how we need this new house cleaning. This reflects a former video that we saw from Professor Black Truth concerning the same. So the powers that we're dealing with, and it's not just the black community, because we see many of them are actually a Trojan horse for European and Jewish agenda. And Vicky Dillard goes in on this in this video here, discussing how Bernie won't back reparations, and she gets in his business just like Brother Phil does down here, because we find when we look at those congressional records, we find that Bernie supported a reparative justice package for Jewish people, for the believe it was France, for their participation in the railways, for their participation in transporting victims of the Holocaust. And it was for millions of dollars. So he supports reparations for his own people, but he doesn't support it for black people. And the bottom line is he shows a disdain. In his action, he shows a disdain for black humanity, you see, and for all of the reparative justice that the Jewish community has received over the years. Anyone that is against reparations for us shows that they have no respect for our humanity. They don't look at us as equally human to the Native Americans, to the Jews that have been compensated, to the Japanese that were isolated and put in camps during the World War II. The internment camps. So it chimes a recurrent theme that our humanity is less than. And the only people that we have that resonate on that level with us to a degree, on a large scale, in a prominent global observation level, is our Palestinian brothers and sisters. So Bernie is not only a hypocrite. What he does there is racist. And if you look at the video closely of his body language and the way he reacts when the woman on The View, I believe it was The View, asked him about reparations, or when I think it was Wolf Blitzer, was asking him about reparations, he gets irritated. And the only time a person gets irritated, or in large part, when people get irritated by questions, is when they think a question is beneath them, beneath their answering. And if you watch the video of him, that is what it is. That's how I see it. It's beneath him. He's irritated that you would even ask anything about reparations for black people. He doesn't think he needs to answer it. Well, he needs to pay at the polls. And that's another tangent. This brings it to, on this channel, always, this channel, and also on the Ancestral Productions channel, I will not hesitate to come forth when I am wrong. If it's pointed out, or if I've made a mistake and I find it, I will redress that. And this comes to Tulsi Gabbard. This comes from Nico House. And he shows that Tulsi Gabbard was on board with reparations before this ever bubbled up in the media, before it was ever a hot topic in the new voices of black media or the national media. She was already on board. I said in a previous video that I didn't think she was going to support it because I hadn't heard anything about it. Well, she had supported it, and she just simply hadn't said anything. So respect to her, and it makes me like her even more. As I've said before, I like her. Of all the political candidates, I like her and Williamson. I used to like Bernie. I no longer care for Bernie. I like a lot of what Bernie says. A lot of it makes sense. I think he speaks from his heart, but his heart is not pure when it comes to black people, and therefore he is unpalatable to us as representation. So when we talk about representation, when we talk about our present Congress people being, especially the black Congress people, being Trojan horses for European social agenda, from both American and their Zionist allies, it brings us to Congressman Ilhan Omar, who I consider a hero and one of the strongest representations that we have in politics. Her and Tlaib. We don't have representation. Some have been against the idea of a black and brown alliance. You better pray that there's a black and brown alliance, because we don't have any representation. They are our Trojan horse. Hopefully they resonate to let us get our own ADOS representation in there. But they do speak for us. Ilhan does speak for us. You see, Tlaib does mention us. You see, and no one else is doing that. So, yeah, you better hope there's a black and brown alliance. In any order, here we get to listen to what Ilhan says in her own defense. And by the way, let me go back to this. Look at the imagery that they use there, the Democrats or the Republicans. The poster they use of her to try to associate her with terrorism, how hateful it is, how racist it is. And yet they attack her for stating the documents of history as far as AIPAC is concerned, and the Zionist lobby and the war crimes that are committed. It's a double standard, and what we've seen is that when the Democratic Party came out to try to silence her, along with the Republican Party, all of them being deeply pressured by their Zionist masters, there was blowback. Some of which even came from the Congressional Black Caucus, to their credit. And what we're seeing is a change of power there. The Jewish lobby does not have the power that it used to. There's a chink in the armor, and they know it's going to grow, and that's why they're trying to stress all the legal legislation to make it illegal to boycott them. They know it's falling apart at the seams. Deep inside, they know they're wrong. They are wrong. They are wrong. The Zionist state is murderous. It's an apartheid state. And their singular claims to the biblical tradition is dishonest also. And man, are we going to go into that on the Ancestral Productions channel? So here we see Ilhan's, in her own words, rather than the way that her words have been manipulated by the Zionist influenced media. And that brings us to this response that David Cross made about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's deplorable, a deplorable, manipulative, crooked. She shouldn't have any power, and she does. They should have got rid of her a long time ago. We need to get rid of them too. We need to start seeing them for who they are. And in this new era of social media, it looks highly probable that that's going to happen. It's already happening, and they're afraid. So that brings us to the next point that I always fit in with these analysis of the Zionist state, and that is that by no means is Zionism an indication of the entire Jewish population. Never. You can never look at a rabbi or someone that claims to be Jewish and assume that they are Zionists. It is not true. It's just as racist as making an assumption about black people or Muslim people. It's just simply wrong to do. And anytime I make a critique, I always have to preempt it with that. And most of our audience is black here, so all of us know what it's like to be judged for no reason. So while I go in on the Zionists, and I will continue to go in on them because it's the right thing to do, I always make clear that it has nothing to do with it's not a monolith. Not all the Jews support it, especially the Orthodox Jews, and we're going to get to that right here. So this video shows how prominent Jewish Americans came out and supported Ilhan immediately as soon as she was attacked, and that would be led by Rabbi Weiss here. He was there. They interviewed him. He's there. He pops up all over. You see, it's not all of them. It's a 6-minute video. Listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. You see, they're deeply critical of it. The Zionist state is against the Word of God. How many of you know that? Wait until the Christians find that out. Wait until the European Christians, I believe it's highly probable, that they're going to find out. They're going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed about the way that they've been written about in the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud. Where do we see AIPAC denouncing or condemning the Talmud? The source of the curse of Ham? The racism in there, and it is racist. The way that they talk about Goyim, if your typical Christian knew what that book said, they wouldn't be supporting the Zionist state. They wouldn't be supporting if they knew what the Sephardic leaders have said, which the data is there for anybody to look at. How can you go and support them when they hate you, when they think you less than? And that's the same for I'm going to show video clips of Nancy Pelosi bootlicking in such a way that she should be charged with treason. You see, that these American politicians, the way they bow down to the Zionist money without realizing it should be common sense. Do you think that those Zionists, that they respect them? No one respects a traitor. It's like law enforcement. They might be law enforcement. They're putting people in jail, but even the law enforcement despise the snitch. You see? Even law enforcement have no regard for snitch. Our Congress people, effectively, and our politicians, and many of our presidents have been snitches to the Zionist powers, subordinate. And it's been one hand wash the other. If you look at the work of Noam Chomsky, he makes clear that it's jumping to conclusions that they think that as small as Israel is, that it has the power to tell the United States what to do flat out. But it does have the power to manipulate it. See? And the politicians that they manipulate, how do you respect them? Would you respect someone that would sell their own people out? So what they're doing is wrong. This brings us back to Tulsi Gabbard. Support Ilhan right out the box. Didn't think twice about it. Now, whether Tulsi supports reparations, in the end, we don't know. But she's done more than the other politicians. And we see that Ilhan is not simply going against the Zionists. She goes against Barack Obama, too. Calls him out for the murder he participated in. I said I'd never talk about Barack because of what he meant symbolically to our people. But I can't critique what she said there. Anybody that's president of this government, as it is, throughout the entire history of it, they're mass murderers. Because that's what this superpower does. You see, that's what Tulsi Gabbard is trying to get us away from. So, for all the contentions, what we see is chinks in the armor, finally, of the Zionist lobbyists, and we're going to continue to go in on them because they're wrong. They're wrong, and what they're doing to the Palestinians, you better believe they're going to try to do to us to whatever level that they can for anybody that contests them. So our media that doesn't go in on the Zionists, our media that doesn't recognize that pattern, our media that does not discuss the Jewish influence on our politics, they're either afraid of them or beholden to them. That is the way that I see it. So we're going to go in on them. We're going to continue to go in on it all. We need a house cleaning. It is true. And as I've said before, I believe we're seeing the ripples of the wavefront for that. So, with that said, as always, until next week, continue to watch and support Black media